Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it is the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a great show lined up for you today. All kinds of good stuff. The world is on fire. All kind of things are happening. Let's jump right in here. We got a couple of show highlights. We start off with a machete attack in LA. That's Los Angeles. A Florida sheriff. This is a big story, and I bet there's going to be a lot more that comes out of this. A Florida sheriff, or former Florida sheriff, has been arrested in a massive, potentially multi-million-dollar racketeering and gambling ring. It's a big deal. We're going to get to that story shortly. And, of course, LA, again, Los Angeles, burns again. So let's jump right in. We go to Los Angeles via a story out of New Mexico, thanks to KRQE, Albuquerque News. An Albuquerque native was one of the victims of a violent machete attack in downtown Los Angeles that left another man dead. Although the 35-year-old chef survived this attack, he has a long road to recovery ahead. So just in case it wasn't clear, there were two machete attacks. One was fatal. The other guy, the chef, the 35-year-old guy who's a chef, this happened in Los Angeles. But the guy's hometown is Albuquerque or New Mexico or whatever. So that's why they picked up the story or they ran it or whatever. We'll get back to that in a minute. It was a typical night for Kyle Levitt. He was walking home after his shift at a restaurant, but the walk home quickly turned violent. As Levitt went to grab his keys to unlock the door, now folks, this is what I've always been, now I don't know exactly what happened. This is just a newspaper article. They probably did this from the guy's hospital bed. But if you'll recall, one of the things we've talked about multiple times here on the old Make It Out Alive broadcast is have things like your keys and other stuff ready. And as soon as you get inside the door, lock it, especially your vehicle. Anyway, while he's grabbing his keys, he heard footsteps running behind him. I guess he's going back to his apartment complex or whatever. As soon as I looked up to see the reflection in our lobby door, I noticed the reflection of a man, and that's where the running noise came from. That's when the attack started, recalled Kyle. He later learned that he was the second person to be attacked that night. A few blocks away, police say the same suspect attacked a 60-year-old man with the same machete and killed him. Folks, well, let's do this first. The attacker hit Levitt from behind, slashing his neck, ear, head, and body. He called for the man to stop and turned around. The man then knocked him down and continued slashing with the machete, slashing his wrist and then running away. That's when I noticed half of my hand had been cut through. So both of my tendons leading to my thumb were severed. His hand is now worthless momentarily. His artery was severed in his wrist, and the cut went down to the joint of my wrist, emphasized Levitt. It also left the man with a skull fracture and staples in his head and neck. But worst of all, it left him without the full functionality of both of his hands. As a chef, he's left unable to work, saying it could take months to regain mobility. I got bad news, pal. Months is going to be a best case scenario, and I mean that nothing negative. Very sincerely, I hope he makes a full recovery. There's no evidence there was anything behind this other than a random attack, or maybe the guy with the machete was fueled by drugs or alcohol or whatever. There was a picture of him in the article. He looked pretty wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, so I'm going to guess that some type of substance was involved. We won't make any comments on the whereabouts. They didn't give the name or whatever else, but machetes aren't the usual attack instrument of attack here in the States. Typically, you see that a lot. I look up a lot of news stories about attacks and violent crimes and so forth for the show. That is very, very much a Mexico, South, Central America, so forth sort of instrument of destruction. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. I was just curious, and they didn't give the guy his name or originality, so it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this article. Folks, if you've never seen a machete attack, do yourself a favor. Don't do an image search on machete attacks. It is horrible. I did some more research for this article. This guy actually came out based on the pictures I saw, Kyle Levitt here, and again, wish him a full recovery. He is apparently a completely innocent victim in this, had nothing to do with anything. He didn't come out too bad, man. Like the staples on his head, they put him together pretty good. His hand's jacked. It's going to be jacked for a long time. He's probably going to have neurological problems and such in his hand for the rest of his life. Hopefully, I mean, they make a lot of advancements in medicine. Hopefully they get him back and up and running and working again very soon. But it could have been a lot worse. I remember reading some medical journals a couple of years ago. I was doing some research on different types of wounds, like in the backwoods, and I came across this image of this guy that was out. He was an American. He was a white guy, and he was using a machete in, I don't know, somewhere in the southeastern U.S., I believe, and he completely overstruck what he was trying to cut with the machete, and went through the foliage or whatever, and he had his leg positioned wrong, and he sunk that machete into his leg, like the meaty part of his thigh. Guys, it was one of the most grotesque photos I have ever seen, and I have seen a lot of some pretty heinous things, both in real life and in photos and videos. It was bad. Like, it was down to the bone, and it literally cleaved that flesh apart. It was horrible. So, and that guy was jacked for a very long time. He almost died. He severed his femoral artery, and he had to be thank goodness he was in a spot where somebody with him had reception on their phone, and they got him life flighted, medevaced or whatever we want to call it, right out of the woods right there. If they had a clearing where they could land, they got him out. That guy would have died. It was insane, the amount of blood loss and everything. But there were also pictures of after they got him back to the hospital and irrigated the wound and everything. It went to the bone, and I mean, everything that was on the inside was on the out. It was horrible. But you see a lot of these machete fights in like South and Central America as well on Twitter, X as it's called. There's random attacks people post. It's horrible. It is absolutely horrific. So anyway, we're not going to keep going down that path, but this guy is very fortunate. We wish him all the best. He was born and raised in New Mexico, but has lived in LA for the last 11 years. He hopes to be back in the kitchen soon, where he wants to achieve his goal of bringing New Mexican cuisine to Los Angeles. Well, Kyle, we wish you a full recovery, and man, it's very sorry that happened. Can you imagine just being on your way home from work? You're probably tired. If he's a chef, he probably wears one of those chef frocks or whatever in the world it's called, that heavy shirt they wear. Those guys, if you've ever been in a commercial kitchen, those guys work like dogs, men and women both, and they are sweating like crazy. It's very, sanitary, but they have that heavy coat a lot of them wear. He probably wanted to get home, take a shower, get something to eat, and instead he gets attacked by a guy with a machete. Can you imagine? Man, what a crazy, bizarre world. Okay, my pages are getting all messed up here. What in the world happened to my... All right, let me move on. All right, here we go. This is the Florida sheriff story. Let me get a sip here. My voice is already taking a beating. Okay, we have discussed a number of times over the course of this show here on the MOA broadcast just how wild and crazy the lawless swamps of Florida can be, but it never ever ceases to amaze me what goes on down there. Our headline, Florida sheriff accused of participating in, quote, massive illegal gambling ring. He is granted $1 million bond. Story coming out of ABC. A now suspended Florida sheriff has been accused of helping expand and protect an illegal gambling operation. He got his $1 million bond granted to him on Friday. That doesn't mean he made bond. That means they granted him the opportunity to make bond. Marcos Lopez, 56, was arrested and charged Thursday with racketeering and conspiracy to commit racketeering, both first-degree felonies, in connection with what prosecutors called a massive illegal gambling operation in Central Florida, including Lake and Osceola counties. This guy is an elected sheriff. I believe we got elected back in 2020. This is a very responsible position. Got a lot of power and authority here. The operation generated more than $21.6 million in illicit proceeds, according to the Florida Attorney General's office. Lopez, who was first elected to serve as the sheriff of Osceola County in 2020, allegedly took campaign contributions and personal payments from the operation before going on to play a, quote, multifaceted role in expanding and protecting this illegal enterprise, using his office to shield the enterprise from law enforcement, the office said. Wow. The charging document alleges Lopez and others charged in the case committed money laundering, operated a gambling house in Kissimmee, and illegally possessed slot machines. Lopez is also accused, in his capacity as sheriff, of receiving unlawful compensation or reward for official behavior and using confidential information with the intent to obstruct a criminal investigation. So you can see what's going on here. This is all alleged. We're not saying he did this. This is what the Attorney General's office is alleging and charging him with. Allegedly, it sounds like this guy was not only involved in facilitating this gambling ring, but according to these charging documents, he was somehow using his official office of elected sheriff to shield the operation from official, I don't know what you would call that. It wouldn't be prosecution necessarily, but pursuit by the police, investigation by the police and the sheriff's department or whatever, while they continued their gambling operation. This is like something out of an episode of a TV show or a movie. This could be a number of different movies throughout the years. Man, text messages show Lopez and his alleged co-conspirators dating back to 2019 had involvement in the illegal enterprise, allegedly, including sourcing new locations and screenshots of slot machines. According to Papakos, I don't know who in the world that is. Somehow the article didn't introduce that fellow. Anyway, he allegedly used his influence as sheriff to facilitate this enterprise and potentially obstruct criminal investigation. Since 2020, he has allegedly obtained $600,000 to $700,000 in cash payments from the illegal enterprise, Papakos said. I think that's with the Attorney General's office. I'm not sure. His defense attorney argued that such a bond, the $1.2 million bond, would be very high for the nature of the crime, given what his family could afford. She asked for $25,000 for each count for a total of $50,000. Bottom line, the judge wasn't playing ball. Judge Emily Curington ultimately set his bond at $500,000 for each count, with conditions including that he undergo GPS monitoring and surrender his passport if he posts bond. She also asked the source of the funds be shown to the state after Papakos expressed concerns about them coming from any illegal So they're worried he's going to take the gambling money and post his bond. What a wild story. That's a TV show all in itself right there. Holy smokes. This went on since 2019. That's almost 6 years. That's when they first have evidence of it. So for at least 5 to 6, 7 years, this mess, whoever did what allegedly or whatever not, has been doing all this. Man, who knows what else and who else is involved. They're gonna want to flip this guy, I'm sure, because who else is involved in this? Maybe he's the top dog, who knows? But you got to believe there's other people involved along the way. So, man, what a mess. Only in Florida, guys. His court date has been scheduled for June 30. He has yet to enter a plea. Let me get a sip. Wow. Okay. Now, this is a good article. The next one up here, we have talked a number of times about people making poor or wise decisions when they go backpacking, hiking, and whatever in the backwoods, out in the backcountry. And we have talked about dozens, almost by this point, it might be dozens, of people in just this year alone that, and by this year alone, I mean just on the show, there have been hundreds upon hundreds of rescues already. But people that have been rescued by SAR, search and rescue teams, and so forth in the backcountry. This article comes to us out of Skamania County, that is Washington State, for those on the West Coast, just north of Oregon, for those of you not in the States. Sheriff wants to charge for rescues of negligent, reckless hikers in Skamania County. Right off the bat, I'm with him. Or I think it's actually, it's a female, it's a her. I'm with her. That's a good idea. But this article comes to us from KOIN News. Ironically enough, the article is out of Portland, Oregon. Following a dramatic increase in search and rescue missions on the Washington side of the Columbia River Gorge, a local sheriff has proposed charging a fee to those in need of saving. Now, guys, we've talked in this show in just the last couple of episodes about multiple very, very expensive SAR and rescue missions that have taken place because people were doing absolutely stupid things in the backcountry. They were not prepared at all. They had no business being there. Like that, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that guy on Mount Fuji in Japan. He was out hiking or backpacking, whatever it was, and completely unprepared. He lost he got rescued, okay? He got cell phone coverage and he placed a call to SAR or whatever they call it there. I have no idea. He got rescued, but he left behind some of his equipment or his personal belongings, a cell phone and everything. What did he do? 3 or 4 days later, he goes right back up and climbs the mountain again and gets stranded again and calls for SAR, for rescue again. And we've had numerous stories just in the last couple of weeks or month or 3 about people that have had $50,000 to $100,000 plus rescue missions here in the States because they just weren't prepared. They didn't think ahead. They had, they brought along like a can of Spam and some beef jerky and like a toy backpack that, kids would buy for going back to school at Walmart. They're not prepared. They don't have what they need. And, they wind up getting lost back out in the woods, and then they don't know what to do, and they call SAR, and it costs thousands of dollars for these rescue efforts. Now, if it's a legitimate need, of course, that's what it's there for. If you find yourself trapped in weather, I have been in situations where I contemplated, should I call the cavalry? Should I call for help? Because especially when you start getting at elevation, 5, 6, 7,000 feet, things can turn on a dime and get very ugly very quickly. But what this article is talking about, let's dig into this a little bit deeper. But what this law or the sheriff, whatever in the world is going on here in Skamania County, they're talking about people who are being negligent and reckless. And so you believe what you want, you think what you want, make your own decision. I'm kind of in favor of it, but let's dig a little deeper. Skamania County Sheriff Summer Shire, I don't know. It looks like Skyer to me, said their search and rescue missions have spiked 400% compared to this time last year, putting a drain on their limited resources. Guys, a lot of these people are volunteers. Okay, if you have any experience with SAR guys, search and rescue teams, a lot of them are volunteers. They do this out of the goodness of their heart. They're some of the best folks you can ever imagine meeting. They go out there, and a lot of these guys are not young, like 20, 25-year-old young bucks. Some of these guys are getting on in years, 30s, which I'm sorry, late 30s, getting up there for taking risks in the backwoods, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And it's a danger sometimes just sending them out into the woods because they have to go and deal with low or crazy temperature extremes, low light situations or no light situations. They've got to use sometimes technical rope situations. There's all kind of stuff. And a lot of them do this volunteer. They don't get paid. Okay. The ones that do, that gets extremely, can you know how much it costs to sit there and run a helicopter to hover? Like that one we did a couple of weeks ago in Riverside, that helicopter. And I'm glad that lady did a good job. It doesn't sound like she was negligent at all. In my opinion, she was a superstar, one of the best that we've come across. She did everything it sounds like right. But she slipped on some shale or some loose rock or whatever. It happens, man. It happens. And they hovered a helicopter above her for I don't know how long until they got her hooked up and then, took her to someplace safe. That costs a lot of money. And this isn't like LA where Riverside is. Basically, this is Skamania County, Washington. You're in the middle of basically nowhere compared to someplace like LA. They don't have these massive budgets. So Their search and rescue, the SAR missions, have spiked 400%. According to the sheriff, 99.9% of them are out-of-county residents. meaning people that have come there. They're either on some trail like the PCT Pacific Crest Trail, or I don't know if this place is in the PCT or not, but it probably is or close to it. Or they're tourists, they're on vacation, or they're just people that pulled over and decided to go for a hike, and they're completely unprepared. So it's our county residents who are footing the bill, the sheriff says. She says she only wants to go after people if they have been negligent or reckless, causing them to need help from her rescue team. Somebody with a collapsed lung who decides to go in the worst weather, the worst weather conditions we've seen in many, many years, and the person wasn't supposed to go above 1,500 feet, decided to go to an area where it's 30,500 feet. She says, I have been above 5,000 feet with a collapsed lung, and I did it, but I can tell you it was not fun. But here I am. I'm still standing. In May, 70% of their missions were a result of a hiker or boater putting themselves in unsafe conditions. So, I don't know. You got to be careful, because anytime you give the government, I mean, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. We've seen that time and time again. But anytime you give the government free reign to start charging people anything, they frequently tend to get out of hand. But I got to say, I'm kind of for having some consequences, especially for people that are negligent and aren't really prepared. The problem then becomes, who decides that, right? What if, the sheriff, or what if it's 2 or 3 sheriffs from now and they just become completely tyrannical about this, whatever. So I did think the interesting thing was KOIN 6 News asked some hikers. They interviewed some locals in Skamania County for their thoughts on the proposal. As soon as I saw this response, before I even read who it was from, I knew that it was a Portlander. You don't want to be charging people thousands of dollars if they get in trouble, but there is a certain amount of responsibility associated with coming out to the woods, said Dan of Portland. Well, Dan, I've been hiking around Portlanders plenty of times, and let me tell you, they're out there in Crocs, they're out there in flip-flops, their whole entire rations consist of a couple of pieces of beef jerky and some kind of fruit leather from Whole Foods, and they are not prepared at all. They think it's like something they saw on the internets. Oh yeah, go ahead and give me this rations list, which is some, beef jerky and some trail mix, yada, yada, yada. Another hiker from Hillsboro, which is near Portland, said they agreed with the idea of charging a fee for a rescue if they got into the situation out of negligence. The cost of this potential citation has not been determined. However, in the Columbia River area in Oregon, which is a beautiful area, I have been hiking there hundreds upon hundreds of miles. Guys, Oregon, if you get away from the major cities, is a lot less wacky than you really think. It is so beautiful, and it's so green that it looks almost fake when you take photographs of it. I took many photographs that I later showed people just from my phone, like a cell phone camera, and they thought they were like fake, or I had edited the photos because they were so lush and green. It's beautiful. But there's a statute in Oregon. You can be charged a fee of no more than $500 if they didn't exercise reasonable care or if laws were violated. So anyway, the sheriff in Skamania County says she wants her ordinance to have a little more teeth. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. But the biggest thing is if you have done your very best to prevent yourself from landing in that situation, it's going to be obvious when on the balance of things, when they perform the rescue, if that becomes necessary, it's going to be obvious. Like that guy that started, setting forest fires a couple of years ago because he was trying to set signal fires. That guy got charged, and I believe he wound up having to pay and was prosecuted because the courts judged that he was negligent or whatever in the world they call it, but they put the responsibility on him. So be prepared, folks. That's again what the MOA broadcast is all about. We talk about being prepared. Think about this stuff before it happens. It only takes an hour or 3 before you go out on a hiking or a backpacking trip to look at what are the potential things that can go wrong, and then you prepare for them. It really isn't rocket surgery for the most part. It's pretty simple stuff. Okay, Los Angeles is burning again. I'm going to get a sip here. We are still on the heels of dealing with the fallout from those massive fires we had in Los Angeles just a couple of months ago. People are not moved. It's not all over. People are not moved back in. People are going through the absolute permitting nightmare of trying to get their homes rebuilt. It is insane. And now Los Angeles is burning again. If you haven't been watching the news, you're going to get this podcast on probably Sunday. What is the day today? The 8th. So this is going to drop on the 8th. I have been following the news all night. I'm a night owl. I was up all night long. There are massive protests, and it's completely out of control in Los Angeles. What it boils down to is they're protesting the fact that ICE is going out and they are arresting people that are here illegally. I'm not going to get the political. I don't care. Believe what you want to believe politically. I don't care. The facts are there are people that are here illegally. ICE, which is the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, they are going around and arresting people for being here illegally, and they're going to deport them. Okay? I don't care what you feel about it. I'm not putting my feelings into it. Those are the facts of the matter. If you go to the ICE X page or Twitter page, if you go to their website, they are telling you we are going after people that are here illegally. We're going to round them up, arrest them, detain them, and deport them. Those are the facts. There are people in Los Angeles and other parts of the country that do not like that. That's their business. Do what you want to do, believe what you want to believe. But they are actively fighting back. They are being encouraged by celebrities or notable people or people that have a public presence. And it is causing massive problems. If you have not been following the news, LA is literally a war zone. This is reminiscent of the riots, the Rodney King riots, and the other riot that we've had in LA, a series of them over the years, going back 30, 40 years now. It is crazy. So let me give you some of the facts here. Federal ICE operations across Los Angeles, including business raids in Paramount, California, which is near LA, and downtown LA, have spurred intense protests. Demonstrators have clashed with Border Patrol and federal agents. They are now using tear gas. They are using the less than lethal or non-lethal, whatever in the world the latest buzzword is they call it. Used to be called less lethal. Now it's less than lethal, I think. The rubber bullets and the other things, they're using flashbangs. It is out of control. Let's see. What do we have here? Ow, I think I just got a paper cut. Holy smokes. Man, that didn't feel very good. In Compton, a car was set ablaze as activists lit fires. I saw the video for this on X. I don't like to push anything. If you guys have not used X, though, X is just a new name for Twitter. I'm not going to get into the politics of Elon Musk. He bought it, whatever. I don't care. It is an interesting tool because pretty much anybody can upload anything at any time. And the advantage of it is you have to be careful about people's opinions and what they say, but videos for the most part are indisputable. And the videos that have been coming out of LA the last 36 hours are insane. Okay, we got to take a break. When we get back, we're going to get back to the burning of Los Angeles, and we've got even more coming up. The National Guard, possibly the Marines getting involved. We will see you after the break. More Make It Out Alive with Sam Wilson after this.
This is Dave. Dave makes the tastiest burritos in town. But
nobody knows I exist. I'm serving culinary masterpieces to my mom and a raccoon named Dennis.
Then came Jenny.
Dave, have you tried radio?
Radio, isn't that for traffic reports and late-night alien talk?
It's also for thousands of people who don't know you exist.
Huh?
Yet, radio is affordable, reliable, and it works. Not instant burrito fame, but people start showing up kind of results.
So I partnered with Gold Country Radio, and now people know I exist. I've got new customers, catering calls, and Dennis brought a possum. I think they're dating.
I told you. Radio gets your business heard.
Next up, we a second table, maybe indoor seating.
Want to get your business heard? Visit goldcountryradio.org and click Contact to get started. Radio, small budget, big reach, real results.
You're listening to the MOA broadcast with Sam Wilson. Will you make it out alive? And we are back from the break. I am your host of the MOA, the Make It Out Alive broadcast, Sam Wilson. Okay, folks, before the break, we left off with this disaster that is going on in Los Angeles right now. The Basically, people are rioting all over the city about these ICE arrests. They don't want people that are here illegally being deported. Again, you are free to have your thoughts, your feelings about the politics of it all, this, that, and the other. The bottom line is the facts of the matter are ICE has said they're going to arrest and deport people that are here illegally. End of story. That's all we're going on right now. Again, I'm not going to get into my thoughts on the politics, yours, whatever. That's where we're at. People are very upset about it, and they're being encouraged by a lot of prominent people on social media and other places. So during the break, I stopped and I had to go feed the cats. So if you've caught the last couple of episodes, I have these stray cats that I've been feeding for going on several months now, and the two that come most regularly are the Dark Knight and Mr. Floofers. They're both these black cats. They're beautiful kitties, but they're street kitties, and they go do their thing all night long, and they stop by my place probably 2 to 4 times during the night because they know I'm a complete sucker and I'm a sap and I'll do whatever they want. Mr. Floofers I put a little towel under my rocking chair, and Mr. Floofers has like made that his home, and that's where he spends 3 to 4 hours a night camped out in front of my front door under the rocking chair. And like a fool, I go out there and just continually feed him treats and those, what are they called? The little, they're like a little tube of delectable something, or I can't think of what it's called, but it's a little like red or orange tube, and it has like this paste in there, chicken flavored, lamb flavored paste. These cats eat it up like crack cocaine. It is crazy. Mr. Floofers loves those. So anyway, I gave the cat something to eat, and then I got something, a little snack, and I came back to get to the broadcast here to get back with this, and I checked the Twitter feed. So Twitter is now called X. I've talked about this a number of times. If you're not familiar with Twitter, it is now called X after Musk bought it. Yada, yada, yada. It's X. It is what it is. It's a great source of news because there's no way the broadcast channels and news companies can keep up with it, because anybody and everybody can post stuff instantly. If I wanted to go in there and say, Sam Wilson is the greatest broadcaster alive, I could type that in and push send, and in seconds it's on there for the whole world to see. Okay, so it's a great source of news. You have to be careful for a number of reasons. Number one, it's a wild, wild west. It's uncensored, so you're going to see anything and everything. Also, you have to decide, is this person trustworthy? Is this account trustworthy? The thing I like the most are the videos of things that happen, because outside of AI and photo editing and video editing and stuff, photos and videos are pretty trustworthy to a degree. So if it's in a video, you can kind of trust it to a degree. Anyway, just a few hours ago, the mayor of LA, I don't know why they say this, she goes, just to be clear, and I'm not picking on anybody, I just don't understand how this stuff works. She says words to the effect of, just to be clear, the National Guard is not present in or activated or whatever in Los Angeles yet. This comes after President Trump last night, and again, I don't care what you think of him. I don't care what I think of him. We're just looking at the news and the facts involved. I don't want to get into a Trump this, a Biden that. I don't want to do it. But Trump put out a press release. He's going to activate the National Guard and send 2,000 troops. So for whatever reason, did I have it in the article here? Did I? Okay, let's jump in. Let's do this first, and we'll get right back to that. Among those arrested in the protest yesterday were the SEIU, that is the Service Employees International Union of California President David Huerta, who was reportedly injured during an ICE raid, a move seen as politically significant by labor and immigration rights groups. He was injured during his arrest. According to Representative Gil Cisneros, he was also tased. I don't know what this guy, the union rep, is doing getting tased, but anyway, he was hospitalized and treated. He has since been released. Huerta remains in custody. Now, the National Guard this is part of just the notes that I had for the show here. The National Guard mobilization. President Trump has federally activated 2,000 National Guard troops with deployment authorized amid the unrest. This happened sometime late last night or during the middle of the night when I saw that pop up. Now, the governor of California had this to say. Gavin Newsom strongly condemned the deployment as purposefully inflammatory warning it will only elevate tensions. Guys, forget politics. Have you seen these videos? There is a guy in a motorcycle helmet literally chucking rocks at tons of these ICE vehicles and other just random vehicles, it looks like, busting out windows and windshields. And there are cars being set on fire. They're setting off fireworks. We are beyond lawlessness. We're not maybe quite as bad as the Watts riots and other things from the past, where LA has had a very wild, history of this stuff. But it's getting there. And the governor's like, nah, sending the National Guard is only going to make things worse. Really? Forget the politics. We need manpower there, right? This is logistics. The mayor said this, and this was viewed as if you want to use the word inflammatory, post. She said, as mayor of a proud city of immigrants who contribute to our city in so many ways, I am deeply angered by what has taken place. These tactics sow terror in our communities. She's talking about the illegal immigrants being arrested by ICE. That's what sows terror in the communities and disrupt basic principles of safety. Her office, my office speaking for the mayor here, is in close coordination with immigrant rights community organizations. We will not stand for this. The sheriff's office also put out some kind of statement that they were basically not going to be either involved in or cooperating with. I forget exactly what they said, but words to the effect of they weren't getting involved in the ICE arrests and roundups. Okay, guys, we're past that. Look at these videos. LA is burning. They're still dealing with the fallout from these fires. And there was a video where people were randomly setting grass fires because they're mad at ICE. What does that have to do with anything? So you got to make a choice here. How far are you willing to tolerate lawlessness? Imagine you live there and people are now lighting grass fires. If you live in a dry state, like out in the out west, here in Oregon, where I live in the high desert, these wildfires can be devastating. We've had hundreds of thousands of, if not more, of acres burned in the last several years from these fires. It is devastating. They just got through some major fires in LA themselves, and now people are mad at ICE, so they're lighting the grass on fire. What does that have to do with anything? It's a mess. So last night, Trump said he was going to mobilize the 2,000 members of the National Guard. Just a few hours ago, the mayor of LA said she wanted to be clear. Words to the effect, I want to be clear, the National Guard is not activated in LA right now. I just checked the acts of the Twitter feed while I was taking the break here. 21 minutes ago, breaking National Guard to arrive in LA within hours. Why all these conflicting reports? What in the world? Put yourself, and I'm not trying to stir anybody up in any sort of way, but put yourself in the situation. Imagine you're in LA and you're looking at the news. What in the world are you supposed to think? This is not good for anybody. Before I stepped into prep for the show and get some dinner last night, I checked a few videos. They completely overran the 7-Eleven, and these people just bashed it in, these looters, bashed in the doors or pried them open, whatever it was, and they were going there stealing bags of chips and candy. And what does that have to do with ICE? What are we doing? Why wouldn't you want law and order to be restored? It's crazy. So again, I'm not trying to influence anyone to feel anyway. It's just looking at those are the literal facts of what has happened. The Secretary of Defense has said they may mobilize active duty Marines if they can't get things under control. It's a mess. So let's leave it there. We'll move forward. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let me get a sip here and we'll all take a moment to reflect on the gravitas of the situation. Okay. Let's put the phone up. I can't take any more Twitter feed and this, that, and the other. One of the things I wanted to talk about, I'm not going to have time to do either of these topics justice, so I'll probably do a little bit of both, and then we'll flesh them out next week a little bit more. Have you guys heard of these First Amendment auditors? This is interesting. I've seen this on social media. I think I first saw it on TikTok and then wound up viewing the YouTube videos for a lot of these guys. Have you ever heard of First Amendment auditors? So let me read what the online definition is of a First Amendment auditor, and then we'll flesh it out from there. So these are, according to the interwebs, First Amendment auditors are individuals, often independent activists or self-described citizen journalists, who film or photograph public spaces, government buildings, and public officials to test and assert their rights under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, particularly freedom of speech, freedom of the press, right to petition the government, and freedom of assembly. Now, what they typically do, they record video or take photos in public spaces such as post offices, police stations, city halls, courthouses, or sidewalks, anywhere the public is generally allowed. Let me skip through this. I've seen dozens, if not more, of these videos now in researching this and just, coming across this, spending time on the internet. What these First Amendment auditors do is they have learned a couple of things, and I'm not going to make throw any mud here or whatever else, cast aspersions. But let's look at the raw facts. These are guys, usually they're men, that have they understand now that it is perfectly legal to film almost anything you can, with very few exceptions. Here in America, you can videotape almost anything you can see from public property. Okay, fine. I have no problem with that. It may not always be fun, but it is what it is. It's the law. Okay. There are also typically laws in place across almost all, if not all, of the states in the U.S. here, where the police cannot just walk up to you and demand your ID, your driver's license, or whatever, without believing what they call reasonable, articulable suspicion that you have committed a crime. Okay? So let's say to put this in context, these First Amendment auditors will go to some place, like they'll walk up to a post office, they'll walk up to a city hall, or just some place on the sidewalk where they're on public property. And I'm not saying I'm for or against them. There's a case to be made both ways. I would never be against someone exercising their civil rights, okay? Because freedom is extremely important. Even if you don't agree with how it's being exercised, freedom is extremely important. People have fought and died for that. When someone sheds blood for freedom, you have to take it seriously. And it's enshrined in the Constitution. Now, it may not have been in the original writing of the Constitution, but the Supreme Court has ruled that many of these things are constitutionally protected, okay? So what usually happens, or what frequently happens, is there'll be one or two or three of these guys, and they all have either cameras or phones or whatever else, and they'll walk up and start filming a police station, a post office, or some other public thing, or a restaurant, or just anything that's publicly visible. And this is the part that I find weird. Regular citizens, civilians, they see this and they freak out. They go crazy. Like, some of them will get violent, some of them will assault these people, and they'll call 911 because some guy is walking around just videotaping things in broad daylight. Okay? It's bizarre. Not the videotaping part, the fact that people freak out. Have you ever been to a city like New York City? There are people with cameras everywhere, not to mention the hundreds, if not thousands, of cameras that are on every street corner, that are in and outside of restaurants, stores, this, that, and the other, everywhere. You're being videoed everywhere you go. So these auditor guys will go there, and sometimes they'll talk, sometimes they won't say a word, sometimes they'll be a little inflammatory or aggressive, antagonistic, and sometimes they'll just sit there and say, leave me alone, or whatever. But the bottom line is they video, people freak out, they usually call the cops, and then what happens is interesting. The police show up, the better educated cops, and let me be clear, I'm a huge fan of law and order. Just like we're seeing in LA right now, you do not want pure bedlam. You may think you do. There are a few people out there that really think that's what you want. It's not good. When riots and disturbances and so forth, when there is a lack of law and order, you do not want that, especially long term. The problem is not so much the fact that the laws aren't good, but a lot of cops, I've encountered a number of I hate to say the word, but bad cops in my lifetime. These are guys that show up, they've got a gun, and basically they've been authorized to enforce their opinion of the law. Legally, they're there to enforce the law. But what frequently happens on the street is they enforce their opinion, their version of the law, and they're authorized to use deadly force to do it. So these auditor guys frequently get into a bit of a back and forth with the police. about whether or not they have, the first thing the cops almost always do is demand ID. The better trained ones are like, all right, you're taping on public property, whatever, just don't go on private property, you're fine. And they leave. That's the best case scenario, possible outcome. The cops recognize what's going on, they leave. That's what they should do, because that really is the limit of their legal power. They really don't have authority over people if they're not breaking the law. And they certainly don't have authority over people legally if they're exercising constitutionally protected rights. They may win on the street. They may impose their will on someone, but frequently it's kicked in court. And a lot of people have won some large settlements in court because these cops have gone buck wild and tased people, thrown them to the ground, arrested them, hog-tied them, all kind of stuff, because they wouldn't give them ID when they didn't have to. So it's an interesting situation. And I'm sure that's the motivation for some of these guys that are auditors. If you go to YouTube and type in like First Amendment audit, you are going to get tons of results. And some are better at it than others. It's just an interesting exercise. And I wanted to bring it up because it was something I found interesting and had talked with a number of people about. The thing to remember is if you see someone with a camera and they're on public property, they legally have the right. In fact, it is constitutionally protected to a degree to film on public property. If they can see it from public property, they can video it. May not feel good. I mean, I got to be honest. I wouldn't like it if I was sitting there at an outdoor restaurant eating my dinner with family, friends, whatever, and someone walked up 5-10 feet away and they're videotaping me. But if they have the legal right, the constitutionally protected right to do it, you don't want to take that away from someone. Because when they take that right away, what's the next right you're going to lose? Who knows? You don't want to mess with people's constitutional rights. So, it's kind of an interesting thing. And as far as the cops, I am a huge fan of Law and Order. I have encountered a number of, I hate to use the word, what's the word I should use? Let's just say bad or out of control cops over the. Let me tell you a brief story. Let me have a sip here. My voice has just taken a beating this week. Okay. Going back a few years, and I'll give the very, very short version of this so we can stay on track here. I got pulled over for running a stop sign. Okay. This cop, it was a state trooper, immediately amped things up. This guy was way over the top, out of control. He pulled me over for what he thought I ran a stop sign. And immediately, whenever I told him, so I didn't run a stop sign, there was no stop sign there. Okay. I got pulled over. He accused me of running the stop sign. And when I said, officer, there's no stop sign, we were like 60 meters away. And I'm like, you can see, it was broad daylight. You can see from here, there's no stop sign. And immediately he went into, do you want to answer these questions downtown, boy? I'm not even making this up. It was like some Smoking the Bandit cop type situation. This state trooper immediately jumped to like, do you want to answer those questions downtown, boy? And at that point, I realized this guy's nuts. Okay, just say whatever you got to say and get this thing over with. So long story short, he wrote me the ticket. My parents actually wound up pulling up. They were following me to someplace. They pulled up behind me. This guy cursed out my dad in broad daylight. We were all wearing suits and ties. We were headed to a religious gathering, and he cursed us out, cursed out my dad, wrote me the ticket, even though you could clearly see there was no stop sign. Okay. So the next day, we obviously had a lot of conversations about that night. It was wild. That was an interesting, wild experience. So the next morning, I remember my mom suggested, she's like, you need to go take a picture of that stop sign right now. And I did at like 9:30 in the morning. Took a photograph. There was no stop sign. This guy literally just fabricated the whole thing. I took a photograph and then I went about my business and so forth. When I drove back home at about 3:30, 4 o'clock that afternoon, there was a brand new stop sign at that intersection. And I just remember thinking, I was a kid almost, a teenager. And I remember going, wow, that is crazy. So I took a photograph of that as well. When I had my court date a couple of weeks or whatever it was later, I went before the judge and I went there. I was there in a suit and tie. I was a kid. I did things. I'm like, utmost respect for law and order. Okay. So I'm talking to the judge, and this was a small town. We were like it was like a closet with a bunch of filing cabinets. All I remember. And he's looking at my thing. He's like, yeah, you ran a stop sign. We're basically done here. And I'm like, I didn't run a stop sign. He's like, yeah, you did. And so I did two things, or one thing, I guess, however you want to break it down. I put the two photographs on the counter right there in front of the judge. And this was the old days, long before cell phone cameras and everything else. It was done with a Canon EOS, I recall, camera. It may have been a Nikon, but I'm pretty sure it was a Canon EOS. Anyway, it had the date and time, stamped on the photograph. And I put the 2 photographs there, one at like 9:37 or whatever it was in the morning, no stop sign. The second photo, it was like 3:47 p.m. and a brand new stop sign. So this cop had literally called somebody up in the DOT or whoever in the world it was he called, and they sunk a brand new stop sign less than 18 hours after this incident happened. Okay. When I put those 2 photographs there, now I'm a teenager, remember this, so I didn't really know what to do, but I knew I wasn't going to lose this one. So I put the 2 photographs, the judge looked at it, and he looked at me and he just smiled. And then he said, well, you're still going to have to pay court costs or something to that effect. And I did. I didn't know what I was doing. If I had today, I would have told him, listen, I probably would have told him where he could put those court costs. But I did. It was like $30 or something like that. But he dismissed the ticket. It disappeared and so forth. But he knew exactly, immediately, he knew what was up. So, in that sense, and I've got probably 4 or 5 of the stories I could tell you where cops were completely out of line, where I did nothing wrong. And they were just wanting to get their jollies on a Friday night, have a use of force or, have somebody ride the lightning or whatever. And that was an interesting experience. It opened my eyes. I was a teenager when that happened. And, that cop was way out of control. I wound up running into a buddy of mine a couple of months later who was a local city cop. And he told me that guy was the state patrolman was a real psycho, basically, whatever. But that's why these cell phones are so important, because now, and these body cameras are so important because anybody can say anything. Years ago, it was all down to he said, she said. If I hadn't taken those photographs, I would have lost in court and it would have been done. But I took those photographs and that literally changed the whole narrative on the whole thing. So again, the whole point being with these First Amendment auditors, it's interesting. Some of these guys make good money. They get millions of views on these YouTube videos and so forth. And I wasn't trying to encourage anybody to follow this one or that one. I just thought it was interesting. You should go check it out sometime. It's interesting to see sometimes. The thing that I took away from it probably the most was some of these cops, they see a camera in their face in broad daylight and they still violate people. And there are good cops. I have met many of them who are just like those SAR guys I was talking about earlier. They would do it for free. They are good people. I've known many cops. I've worked with dozens, if not hundreds of cops over the years. But there are some there's an article or a thing coming out right now in Florida. I think it's Ocala or somewhere. Some cop arrested this guy who was sitting on a bench in front of a CVS. He just got off work 7 minutes prior, and this cop shows up, threatens to tase him. It's a whole thing. It's going to be a mess. The cop already lost his job or resigned or quit or whatever. I don't know what happened. Maybe he didn't lose his job. He resigned. I don't know. But he's separated from the department, I think they said. And the body cameras and the cell phone videos are what's making the difference. So if some of these guys will act this way when they see a camera right in their face, what do you think they're doing whenever it's dark out and there's no cameras around? And that's all I'm saying. Got to be careful. Okay, we are going to have to skip. I had a really good segment on Dead Reckoning, the navigation method we talked about. We'll get to that next week. It's a good one. I'm not going to toss it. It's totally good. We're not going to have time to get to it today, though. We are going to instead, let me have a sip here, and then we're going to head back to Florida. All right. This one has kind of a sad ending, I guess, in a way, depending how you look at it. Florida man survives alligator attack, shot by deputies moments later. And I'm not even laughing at the poor guy. It is just, that's Florida, man. Okay, this comes to us from WNEM5. A man believed to be on drugs was shot and killed Monday by Florida sheriff's deputies who had tried to shock him with a taser as he wielded a set of garden shears. Shortly after, he was apparently bitten by an alligator in a lake, a sheriff said. Can you imagine a more insane sentence? Getting shocked, or shot after getting tased after getting bitten by an alligator while wielding garden shears to sheriff's deputies. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd told reporters the two deputies were trying to de-escalate the situation before the man, identified as 42-year-old Timothy Schultz, climbed into their patrol vehicle to get the weapons. "This is just crazy stuff, okay?" Judd said. "You know it's got to be true. You can't make it up," the sheriff said. Schultz had a long history of drug-related arrests. According to Judd, he had been released from jail last Tuesday after being arrested for possession of meth, according to the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Monday's incident started when a convenience store worker at about 5:56 a.m. reported a man acting bizarrely, shaking, and asking to call his son. According to the sheriff, Judd, deputies went to the store but couldn't find the man. At about 7:43 a.m., people reported a man, later identified as Schultz, swimming in a lake that contained multiple alligators. Judd said one witness tried to throw him a life preserver and another tried to speak with him, but they received a growl in response. According to the sheriff, while Schultz was in the lake, he was apparently bitten by an alligator on his right arm. The fact that he was bitten by an alligator significantly and still continued his rampage is shocking, Judd said. But if you're on enough meth, then the person you see is not the person that's attacking. I'm not quite certain I understand that, but I'm going to go with it. I think I get where he's coming from. When Schultz emerged from the water in a gated community in Lakeland east of Tampa, he picked up a set of garden shears that had been left outside. He tried to break into a vehicle with a brick. After deputies arrived at the scene, Schultz charged at them with the shears. The deputies tried to de-escalate, told him to drop the shears, and attempted to shock him with a taser twice, according to the sheriff. They were still trying to take him peacefully into custody, Judd said. Schultz entered the deputy's still running patrol vehicle from the passenger side and tried to get either the rifle or the shotgun locked inside from their holders. Judd said the deputies then shot Schultz multiple times. The sheriff's office posted photos to social media showing the patrol vehicle, and I saw the pictures. They shot all kinds of holes. It looked like it was like 6, 8, 10, I don't know, holes in this windshield where they had to shoot this guy because he was going for the rifle, the shotgun. Sad story, drugs involved, maybe mental illness, whatever. It's Florida. What are you going to do? The incident is under investigation, Judd said. The deputies have been placed on routine administrative leave during the initial phases of the investigation. Okay, folks, that's going to do it. I don't really have any more to say other than, what is it about the two coasts here? Stay away from L.A., New York, and Florida if you don't like drama and crime, because those places are hotbeds. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in L.A. It's going to be a hot mess, and it's still rolling down there. I hope it goes well. Remember, folks, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.